Good morning, everyone. Hi, it's Stacy. We are loving my veteran, and this is walking in my shoes this morning. I'm hoping I can read comments they're saying I should be able to now. We'll see. We will see. Let me get everything here. Oh, it let me put my own comments on. Isn't that good? So I'll see if we can read comments as we go. See how things work. So I'm going to have a cup of coffee this morning. Everybody get your sip of coffee and let's get ready. Give people just a few more minutes to get on. So let me talk about a few things as we're getting people on, and I'm drinking some coffee this morning. First of all, please go listen to the podcast this week from our friends at Behind the Service Podcast. Amazing topics. They are on like every podcast platform, Spotify, everything. Subscribe to their channels, like what they do, because they are amazing. Oh, good morning, Jen. I can see a comment. I'm about ready to be excited for a day. We're not sure how long I'll see it, but anyway, that's going on. Don't forget, we have Let's Talk tonight. We are going to talk about communication for a little bit. Going into Let's Talk, that is on our Zoom. Good morning, Sarah Kim. That is on our Zoom in the morning. Or this evening. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm telling you, I'm totally not with it. I have not slept. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing roller coaster that we're on. So don't forget that. Newsletter's kind of been delayed because it is so packed with information. I will have it out by tomorrow. So if you've not signed up for the newsletter, you can get that at. I'm trying to do two things at one time. You can go to our website, which I just typed in all by myself. I'm so excited. You can go to our website and sign up for the newsletter. It is, again, we're going to breach a subject next week that our advisory committee talked about, and we're behind it. We're going to talk about PTSD and living with someone with PTSD and understanding that, and emotional abuse and physical abuse and mental abuse and how it all comes together. And so I know abuse is a tough topic, but we are going to breach that topic next week. So there'll be a lot of that going on. Look, in the coming weeks, probably the end of this week, first of next week, you will get an invitation. We're going to start having town hall meetings that will be done outside of this. So there'll be Zoom meetings, and they'll be on topics that are hot and pressing. Once you know, I learned a lot. Yesterday, I was talking to the chairman of the House Veteran Affairs Committee. Good morning, Nakia. I was talking to them, and I was talking to the minority leader. Both of them have been on the committee for a long time. They just stepped up to leadership roles, and they have a lot of good things that are coming that they're trying to hold the VA accountable for. And the biggest one, I think, for me is called integrated records. And what they're going to be able to do, it's going to be phased in, starting in Washington as a pilot program to get all the kinks out, rather than it be nationwide. It's a few years down the road and seeing it all the way to fruition. But what will happen is when you go in the military, your active duty military records will be uploaded, and they will carry all the way over into the VA system. And so it will be one integrated system. No matter what VA you go to, you will be able to pull your records, and they'll even be able to date them back to your service records, your medical records to your service records, which makes me excited. So that will be in there as well. Okay, so communication. When we have relationships, the biggest issue with any relationship is failure to communicate. It is simply the biggest issue with any relationship is purely failure to communicate. And it doesn't mean just speaking words, because we all talk. What was our conversation yesterday? And in a conversation I was in, we all talk from various orifices, and that way we're not quite sure what cheek we're giving them when we turn the other cheek. But we all talk. But do we say meaningful things when we talk? Are our conversations being productive when we talk? Stephanie's sending me a message. I gotta tell I'm doing live. Are we productive when we talk? Are our communications productive when we talk? Say a lot of things, but if they're not productive conversations, they're just words. You might as well open the, not that anybody would know what a real dictionary looks like, but you could, we had dictionaries and you looked up words alphabetically, which was hard for me because I couldn't spell them. So I was looking up all kinds of strange things. But you might as well read a dictionary, because if you're not communicating effectively and you're not out there being effective in your communication, you might as well be saying nothing at all. I mean, that is just a fact. It is the truth. It is unfortunately what it is. And we do this also often. We can have conversations that are meaningless, but if we don't address the real issues and we don't learn to communicate positively in a non-hostile environment, in an environment that is going to create productivity. And I'm not saying you can't raise your voice, and I'm not saying you can't get heated, because everybody gets heated. Everybody raises their voice. It happens. But you have to be able to participate in an effective conversation. So how does that happen? What exactly do I mean by that? If you're not in a mindset to listen, okay? If you're not in a mindset to listen, nothing productive is going to happen. And I've said this a lot. Sorry, y'all. I've said this a lot. I have said multiple times that when our veteran is in a spot, okay, when they are in a PTSD moment and they are triggered and they're in a spot, you might as well be talking to the wall as to have a meaningful conversation. When I get all defensive and I'm like that, and Carl and I are at it, and I'm like that, he might as well be talking to the wall. So you have to be in a mindset to have a conversation. We have to be in that mindset to talk and the mindset to listen. And if we're not in that mindset, nothing is productive is going to happen. Nothing productive will happen when we're like that. You know, I know when I talk to Carl, when Carl, I can't even talk today. When Carl and I have conversations, and I try this, and then I get frustrated. If I talk to him in the morning before his coffee and his cigarette, at least one cup of coffee and probably 2 full cigarettes in the morning. I know I'm not talking about condoning smoke, and this is just who he is, and it is what it is, and you better accept people for who they are. But if I try to have a conversation, a meaningful conversation before that happens, again, I might as well be talking to the wall. That's what happens, because his mindset, he's not awake. He's not with it. He wants to de-stress. He wants a few minutes of his time. He wants to undo whatever. He wants to spend some time with just him and I having coffee and having a conversation. Okay. But if we try to have a conversation before then, it didn't happen. And, you know, man who remembers everything can't remember anything about a conversation we have from the time he wakes up till he's not 2 cups of coffee in. Anything I say from the time he wakes up to less than a cup of coffee in, not going to happen. He's not going to remember that. When the kids say the tone used, yeah, sets whether it'll be productive or detrimental. But you've got to be in a mindset to have a conversation. And it doesn't just necessarily mean that they have to be calm. It means that you have to be in a mindset to have a conversation. How many times have we had, and Carl will do this with me, that you'll want to have a conversation and there'll be like something on the TV and we've been watching it for a while, and now he'll start to have a conversation, and partway through it, I'm like, what? And he gets kind of mad. But you weren't listening to me? No, this was on. I was watching it. And while I may multitask, I wasn't really focused on something that was important. So it's important You need to make that mindset and that time to have it. When we have an important conversation, I'm like, baby, we need to talk. And we will turn off the other distractions because you get distracted and you're not focusing. And when you don't focus 100%, we already have a hard time hearing what they're saying or listening to what they're saying, or they have a hard time with us because we're not always talking in the same language. It's amazing how we can live in the same house and not speak the same language at times. Okay, that happens. So how do we overcome that? We overcome that because it's simple. We learn to speak the same language and we talk at a time that is beneficial. So when I'm talking about communication here, I'm talking about important communications. I'm not necessarily talking about, oh, it's going to rain this afternoon. Now, if it's going to rain this afternoon and there's storms coming and we need to clean up the backyard, that's one thing. But just conversations, especially meaningful conversations, you have to be in the mindset of which to deliver it and to receive it. So understand that it works that way. That's the only way you're going to have effective conversation. Now, I'm not telling everybody you have to have this conversation first thing in the morning. That's when Carl and I talk better. It's first thing in the morning. We talk better. We have a more meaningful conversation at that point. Some people I know do it better at night. This just happens to be the time that works for us. So it's important that you understand what works for y'all. Again, do not think, sorry, do not think that you can have a meaningful conversation when you're worked up, because it's not going to happen. It is absolutely not going to happen when you think you're having this going on. It doesn't work that way. So it is very important you understand that mindset. So now we've gotten that part straight. Talking, this is hard for me. I'm going to put it out there. Talking involves listening. Okay, that's probably the most key thing I can tell you. Talking requires listening. It is a big deal that you understand that. We can talk all day long to put out our point. But if we don't listen, we're not resolving anything. So what does Nikia say? I promise you, if you ever learn the art of productive conversation, you'll find you can talk about anything. And you can. She's right. But you also have to be willing to listen. So if it's a subject that is not good in your house, something is going on and you need to talk about it, you need to be prepared to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because if you're going to be honest, good morning, Michelle. Thank you for fixing, Michelle fixed my ability to read comments. So thank you, Michelle. If you don't have this going on, and you are not willing to listen to the good, the bad, and the ugly, you might as well not have this conversation. Okay, because that conversation to get to a resolve, again, is going to be as productive as talking to the wall. It is very hard to understand that we have to listen to. I remember this cute little video. It was all over YouTube, and my mom's name is Linda. And my kids always would say, "Look at Linda." It was just the way they were teasing my mom. It was like, "Look at Linda." And there was this cute little boy, and he was like, "Are you listening, Linda? Are you listening? Listen, Linda." And I can remember that being said. And I thought it was funny because it was like the whole, "Look at Linda. Are you listening, Linda?" We can speak, but are we listening? Because listening is as important part of an effective conversation as speaking. Listening is as important part of conversation as speaking. What good does it do to bring up a subject that you have an issue with, or you need to resolve to, or you want to communicate with your veteran, what good is that if you were not willing to listen to the resolve? Why are you not doing this today? Well, I don't know. Hun, why haven't we need to address this. Why isn't this time? And I blew up the other day about something. I can't even remember what it was, but I blew up about it. And he's like, don't you think I want to resolve to that too? I've done this, 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 and this. Okay, I never saw the this, and this. I saw me being overwhelmed, not him doing the this, and this. And it took that conversation for me not to be mad anymore. But I had to be willing to listen, because I could have just sat there with him and said, you don't do this and you don't do that and you don't do this and you don't do that. And I don't see you doing anything to help me. And I don't see you doing this. And I don't see you doing that. And so what is happening is I'm going in this little tiz about, I don't see this and I don't see that. And I'm keeping it all bottled up. And yes, I'm talking to him about it. So I'm letting my feelings out. But if I'm not willing to listen to what he's really doing, we're not resolving anything. And so he comes back to me and says, you don't see this and this and this, and that I'm doing this. And then once I saw that, I'm like, oh shit, I made a mistake here. And that is purely communication. And so I could have kept whatever was bothering me. You're not helping me. I got too much going on. Da, 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 da. I could have kept all that and kept that in my head, spewed it out to him that I felt this way, not listen to what he had to say. And granted, okay, it did probably take me 12 hours for it to sink in. Okay, what he was saying probably took 12 hours for it to sink in. What he was saying to me. But when you do that and you're not listening to you're still festering. You're not doing anything. It's not productive conversation. And it is still a failure to communicate. Communication is not talking. Communication is the art of talking and listening and coming up with the resolve. You have to be able to do all three. You have to be able to talk, to listen, and come up with the resolve. Sometimes the resolve isn't something somebody can fix. Sometimes it's just misunderstanding and you need to vent your feelings or you need to feel heard, and that's fine. But you want them to listen. And sometimes, and this is going to shock probably not the people who are commenting, but this is going to shock a lot of people. This will totally shock a lot of people. What they have to say is equally as important as what you have to say. And let me say this one more time because this is going to be tough here. What they have to say is equally as important as what you have to say. That's a tough one. So their feelings, their anger, their emotion, it is equally as important as what you have to say. And that is a very hard pill to swallow. Because when we're angry or when we want to communicate our feelings or when we want to go on with something, we want to get it out. We want to say how we feel. And I'm not being ugly and I'm just going to put it the way it is. But 9 times out of 10, we don't give a shit what they have to say because we want our own answer. I did it for a long time. I still do it at times. Yesterday was a prime example. I had my moment yesterday. I was swamped. My head was in another place. I felt like was overwhelmed. I was drowning. I went to him, hey, I'm drowning. And then I looked at him and said, what the fuck are you doing? I literally, and he's like totally taken aback. And I'm like, what are you doing? And when he started to tell me, I was like, okay, fine. And you can ask Michelle. It was like, I don't know, 5 o'clock this morning. It was later at 7 o'clock this morning. I was talking to Michelle. I'm like, Michelle, but he's doing all this. And I never paid any attention to it. What does Sarah Kim say? I hate when something has been dropped, and we'll bring it up over and over. Yeah, and that's why to get things to feel normal is going to be relevant, Sarah Kim. It's going to be relevant to you. But I will say this. A lot of times from a veteran, because it's about clear and concise, and they want clear and concise. And I can't tell you how many times that Carl has said to me, do I make myself clear? And if I say, yeah, that isn't the answer he wants. Do I make myself clear? I'm like, yes, isn't what he wants. And he'll say it again. Do I make myself clear? And when I say crystal, we're good. That's something I had to learn on my own with him. And again, everybody is different, but learning how to communicate that. And sometimes a veteran will, but we all do it. We'll go on and on and on and on. The song never ends, y'all. We all listen to it. Yeah, mindset's tough. Mindset's hard. You have to learn. You learn it the hard way. But a veteran, a lot of times, will go on and on and on and on and on because they want to be heard. And I think, and I can't speak for them because I'm speaking from what I see and what I've talked to other veterans and what I'm kind of learning on my own. I think part of that comes from the fact that when they're in that military mindset, when they're in whatever, they don't have to be heard. Somebody gives them an order, they do it. It's not up for question whether you agree with it or not. It's not up for questioning. So sometimes I think they want to speak over and over and over again so that about the same thing, because they really want to be heard and make sure that we understand. What does Nakia say? Once it's discussed, when he brings it up again, repeat it to them that we had clarified this conversation, state clarification, agreed upon. And that's true. Because y'all, people, they will dig up the past. So will I, though. I'm like the grave digger. We can dig up the past, and it's like, well, you did this. And if we've addressed this and we're moving on, let's address it and move on. Drowning in the past doesn't fix the problem. You learn from the past and you move on. And I think that part of our not fighting fair is bringing up so much of the past. And we all do it. This is a learned process. Okay. So let me just put this out here. I want everybody to understand nobody at this is a failure, because if you're listening to this and you're participating in this, you want resolve, and therefore it does not make you a failure. Any attempt you've had at conversation that has not worked in the past, and all of a sudden you hear something on these groups or you find something that works, doesn't mean you have failed at any one given point. Even when we get ourselves ahead and we do so well, then we tend to take steps backwards, and we all do. We all do. And it's not a failure. Failure is ignoring it. And none of us are ignoring it. None of you are ignoring this. We are making strides to find positive and making strides to make things better. So you are not failing at anything. And that is really important. It is really important that we understand we're not failing. We are trying over again to find the right combination that works for you individually. You know, I can't have a meaningful conversation with Richard, although he did say hi to me, and that just made my day, by the way, Nakia. But I can't have a meaningful conversation with Richard because with his hearing loss and other stuff, I don't know how to communicate with him as well. He has his own set of baggage and stuff. And what Nakia and him have worked out to communicate effectively in their realm works for them. What Carl and I have come up with that works effectively for us works for us. Damon and Michelle, what works for them may not, but it's all a combination. We learn from each other and we're like, but what every one of us are saying is this: find what works for you. Don't give up and keep communicating, because communication is about talking, listening, and resolve. That's communication. Anything else is just words. Anything else is just words. You know, I worked in radio for a long time, and you have 30 seconds. Like, you can do ads in 30 seconds or 60-second commercials, and now they're going to 30 seconds. But what happens in a radio ad or a TV ad? I mean, I skip them now because thank God for Hulu and that kind of stuff. But what happens? You see the advertisement, and it gives you a burning desire that makes you feel like, one, you have a problem that needs to be fixed, and they are the solution based on the product they offer. And then you have to have action to it, which is buy it. So they identify the problem, they identify the solution, and they put the action in place, which is to go buy. Think of all your communication that way. Think of all your major communication that way. There is an action, there's a problem. What is that problem? Whatever it is. And it can be small, it can be big, it can be anything. What is that problem? Okay. What solutions do you have together? What are the solutions you both come up with that will make it better? And what is the action plans you're going to take? Both of you. Those are important in fact, effective communications. Let me see what she says. The scary part is when I say something that I have learned, he thinks I'm trying to use it against him. The more I learn about what he went through and show that I'm trying to understand it, it is because they build up this wall, Sir Kim. They build up this wall, and we're not against them. The more they learn that we're for them, the better our lives are going to be. And again, when it comes to communication, and this will be our wrap up for tomorrow, because we're going to wrap this up. When it comes to communication, we can communicate a desired outcome, and we can have that desired outcome, but people only act on what they believe in. Okay, people only act on what they believe in. They only act on what they believe that benefit's going to be. So also often we have spouses say they need counseling, they need drugs, they need counseling, they need drugs. We need to stop yelling. We need to stop doing. This is what I've learned. And it's great. And utilizing what you've learned is fabulous. And explaining to them what you've learned is fabulous. But it comes again in putting it into action and into the delivery, because if you approach it wrong, they now feel attacked, which is exactly where you're talking about. They can feel attacked, but we can too. If all of a sudden somebody comes into you and says, you're not doing this right, or you're not doing that right, or you're not doing this right, what happens? Right? What happens in those words? We feel attacked and nothing productive happens. So I want to wrap this up, because I can get into the whole tomorrow topic in a minute, but I don't want to do that. When we're talking about effective communication, speak at a time that is correct. That's a big deal. Speak at a time that is correct for effective communication. Be willing to listen and have a resolve. Don't ever, and when I don't necessarily mean that you have to say these are the steps. When I'm saying resolve, what is the desired outcome? And I will see so many times spouses will say, I want them to go to therapy. Okay, great. What do you want therapy to accomplish? So get past the broad. If you're going to have a conversation about an issue, big, little, or indifferent, what is the issue? Discuss it. And what is the result? You've got to kind of have a plan in mind. What do you hope the final outcome will be? Not because going to therapy is the steps. It's not the resolve, because you want a desired solution. What is the desired solution and how do we get there? So in communication, you identify the problem. Then there's what do you want the solution to be? And then the steps from the problem to the solution. And if we don't do that effectively by communicating, by talking, and by listening, and by forming an action plan, you're saying nothing at all. It's just words. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I think that is super important when we go forward into doing this. And I'm going to kind of wrap this up. There's a lot of new stuff continuing to come out. Tonight, Let's Talk, 7 p.m. It is on Zoom. It's an event on the page. Just click on it. We'll take you right there. We are going to briefly talk about communication. And then, of course, any other topic you want to bring up. Communication is super important. We all fail at it. We all fail at it. It's funny. We can't wait till baby says their first word. And then we learn our first word, but somewhere along the way, we don't teach them to communicate. We teach them to say mama, 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 daddy, 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 but we don't teach them how to truly communicate. And I think that that's a huge problem that we all have, and not just in our home life, in our every life. So that's y'all have a blessed day. I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes, and we are loving my veteran. Have a good one.